One thing that I have a little bit of an issue with when it comes to specifically Islam is when I'm looking at like the founder of a religion, the one that I'm following, when I see that their character is like showing that they're trustworthy, that makes me way more willing to follow this person, regardless of whatever it is that they're speaking about. So when I see like Muhammad, when he's like in his 50s, marrying a 6-year-old girl, that severely puts me away from this type of idea that I should trust this guy, because I don't trust pedophiles, right?
Well, obviously that's a big thingy when it comes to Islam, but this is being debunked like multiple times, and it's
What do you mean?
funny. So from this to the age, like obviously the age is 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it goes in that kind of cycle.
Mhm.
But in that time, like we're talking thousands of years ago, right? Age didn't go in the same way. It was a kind of, you know, if you were 2 years old, then this on your body proved it. It didn't matter what. Months weren't a thing. Like it
Well,
was
months
counted
were a
differently.
thing.
No, it counted differently. Like puberty was like when you were 18, you were 12 back then. At the time that this happened, it's being said that okay, age was counted differently. So I think it says like this, but it's not. And secondly, it's our first point. Secondly, King Solomon, or Solomon in the Bible, he had a wife who was like, I didn't even know, bro, but she was young, man, and it just
There's not a verse for that. Even if I granted that he did do that, the thing is, the Bible does tackle stuff from a historical perspective. It's not always condoning what's being done. So like it talks about like wars that are happening, tons of immoral things that people do, but it's not even saying, oh, this is good or this is evil. It's just trying to describe what historically happened. In the scenario with Muhammad, he directly had a dream that Allah was giving him Aisha.
Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, right, but not. Yeah, I don't agree with this aspect that she was 8. She was not 8. She was past puberty, and at that time.
Well, she was still playing with dolls because of how young she was.
It doesn't matter how old you can play with dolls, can't you? And I'm not particularly so educated in the ground, like. But look at my age. Look at you.
I'm pretty sure that there's a hadith though that says that the reason that she was playing with dolls is because she hasn't even reached puberty yet.
Yeah, but like age is counted way differently back.
Well, puberty isn't even about age. That is a scientific thing. That happens in a general time span. I haven't heard that argument that age is counted differently back then. I would need to be shown evidence of how that actually is played out.
Yeah, there's tons of evidence. Like it's been debunked multiple times.
Well, hold on. So like let's think about this. If her being 6 years old means that she's like 18.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
If Muhammad's in his 50s, wouldn't that make him over 110?
I don't know, bro.
I mean, if we're just being consistent with how we're doing that, I mean that's that. If it was 3 times his age, he would be over 150. It doesn't make sense.
Well, that doesn't make sense either because.
Well, it doesn't make sense because he wouldn't be alive.
Exactly what I'm saying. So that certain conversation where when Aisha was 8 years old, well 6 whatever, that doesn't make sense to you because age was counted differently, and I know there was a big gap, but it was a gap where if you look at it, okay, that's fine. Like you look at it, think, okay, it's fine. But I know for a fact that what you're saying, like respectfully, it is wrong. And it's been debunked like 100 times. Someone said to you, okay, that 2,000 years ago, this girl was 6. You're gonna think to yourself, okay, how would they know this? How would they know she was 6 if it was 2,000 years ago? They did not have the same amount of knowledge.
Well, they had calendars back then. For thousands of years, they've had calendars. But I mean, I understand generally what you're meaning because we have stuff in the Bible where certain passages, it'll say a 7-year period or like a 3.5-year period. And then it gives you the amount of days that is. So then they're accounting in like 360-day years. But then the thing is, we can show that in the Bible. Okay, this is how they were counting their years in specific situations. But I don't think that you've demonstrated that that's actually what's happening in the Quran. That it's like super different than what we're counting today.
We can't essentially believe that, okay, 2,000 years ago, we find a random book on the floor and it says this happened. We can't believe it unless we can prove it, right? Can't believe it. Don't believe something.
Yeah, you can historically verify documents. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you can historically verify something by some people from that one moment saying, okay, this happened. Then to the next generation, this happened. To the next one, then goes on to this present day, and that has happened. And it's been that's happened in the ground. And the same situation where Aisha was 6. For me, that's kind of obviously respectfully, I think it's kind of a big word, but stupid argument because
it's not stupid.
It's being debunked.
So hold on. If she actually was 6 years old, is that an issue for you?
100%, bro.
If the Quran, the Hadiths, have a genuine argument for the fact that, okay, years are not counted as 365 days, but I mean, even if it was something like a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, it's still 6 years old. You see what I'm meaning?
Yeah, I don't get what you're saying because, first of all, I've said it like a million times, but I'll say it again. It's been debunked.
I mean, you can say that, but you have to show it.
But there's more videos as well, right? I'm just seeing this now, debunked. Evidence was 19 years old.
But when I look at the actual hadith, it says that he married her when she was 6, and he consummated the marriage when she was 9. That's what the hadith says.
I know it's been debunked, brother, but I just can't really, I can't say off my bare mind. I'm not
Okay.
that smart, bro.
Are the hadiths accurate?
Of course, accurate. Everything to do in the Quran is accurate, bro.
Okay. So if it's accurate that he married her when she was 6, then that's an issue.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you actually married her when she was 6. I'm saying
Then
you gotta realize that the Quran is written at a different time than it is now. So some words are gonna be.
they still counted
different.
years. The Quran defines a year as 12 lunar months, which is 354 days long. So if that's the way that the Quran is counting them, then that's also how the hadiths would have counted them, right?
Yeah.
That's actually less than 6 years old.
So 5 reasons why Aisha radiallahu was at least 18 years old when she got married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Bukhari, Kitab al-Manaqib, it is narrated that Aisha said, "I became conscious of the world after my parents had accepted Islam. After every day, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would visit us twice, earlier and later in the day. After the community went through severe trials, when Islam was publicly pronounced, Abu Bakr decided to head to Abyssinia, I don't know what that is, to flee persecution, or when does a child reach the age of consciousness? At least the age is 5 or 6, right? Aisha was telling her memories when remembering the Prophet's visits to her house when she was young. The trials of Muslims started with the public pronouncement of Islam, which happened in the 3rd year of the Prophet's mission. This precipitated a severe wave of persecution for the Muslims. They had no choice but to flee Mecca in the 5th year of Islam. This indicates by the 5th year of Islam that Aisha was at least 7, 8 years old. If Hijrah took place in the 13th year, then she must have been at least 15 or 16. If she got married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam over 2 years after Hijrah, then she was at least 18 when that happened.
The thing that it's assuming with all of that is that people can't remember things or be conscious before that time period. But I have multiple memories from when I'm really young. I know people that have memories when they're really young. Even if all of that was to be true, then what do we do with the fact that it very clearly states that she was 6 years old? That's just a contradiction if we're saying that she was 18.
No, I get what you mean, but that what I just said proves you wrong, because obviously I'm not the smartest guy, but just reading that I can know that the age back then was counted differently, because
No, it's not counted differently. I already showed you that the Quran counts by 354 days in a year. So if the hadith says that she was 6 years old, that's technically less than 6 years old.
I don't agree with you, because obviously I'm not going to.
Well, I can pull up the hadith right now.
Go on then.
Sahih al-Bukhari 51:34 says that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. Hisham said, "I have been informed that Aisha remained with the Prophet for 9 years till his death." That makes it pretty clear, from my perspective, since they count by 354 days. She is 6 or less than 6 by our current calendars.
Oh, okay, I get what you mean. I get why you think that. But looking at this now, I've just realised that I remember this. Aisha, she took part in the Battle of Uhud. The minimum age requirement to take part in the war was 15. Before she got married, or she got married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was in this war, and the minimum age to take part in it was 15. So what's significant is that in the marriage between the two happened in 1623 and 1624, which is before thingy. So a few years when she got married.
If we're having to do some gymnastics with the stuff about the specifics of what wars they're going to and different things, that they're different ages in 2 different spots, that just means it's a contradiction. That doesn't help us.
You are allowed to be critical of the past, but what you shouldn't do is perpetuate apologist rhetoric. If we agree that Islam is one of the few religions that respect women, yet its history of traces of misogyny, then the only way we can uphold our values is being critical of such scenarios. How did Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam go from marrying a woman twice his age, both considered adults, to marrying Aisha at allegedly age 6? What he should have done here is delve into proper source criticism. How the hadith might have been interpreted, transmitted differently by misogynistic scholars who have an interest in pushing the ISO 6 narrative.
Well, it's not just a narrative, it's what it says. It's what Islamic sources say. So how can you interpret that hadith differently than her being 6 years old?
Well, I don't know the context of that, because I'm not Hafiz, bro. I haven't read the whole Quran, but just
Well,
on
this
this
isn't.
video.
It's a hadith, not in the Quran.
Sahih al-Bukhari, right? The thingy.
Yeah, 5134.
Okay, so first of all, Sahih al-Bukhari wasn't written by Allah. It was written by scholars, right? Or people who have been
Okay.
at that time. So what I'm thinking is, at that time, right, there was obviously there's misogyny, patriarchal society, right? So men are more dominant than women, and women are looked down on, right? Scholars at that time wanted to make it look like Aisha was
Younger.
yes. Until she
Well, I mean,
was,
if the scholars were lying, then why should I trust them?
no, I wouldn't say it was lying. I'll say it was interpreted differently. I was just saying that at the time of people's bodies develop quicker, so the average 16-year-old back then would have looked similar to a 25-plus-year-old right now, etc. So not exactly within the right. Oh shit.
Well, just because somebody looks older than they are doesn't mean that they actually have aged that much. You can still find out how old they are by tracking how many days they've been alive.
Back then, scholars rated it differently because of the way things were at that time.
They like put the ages differently.
That's basically yeah. Yeah,
Okay. So how old was Muhammad when he married her? Or can you not know that?
He was. I get what you mean. Actually, that's quite smart. Bro.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get wrong.
The thing is, if he's like 50-something years old, and we know that,
Yeah.
and we're saying, oh, well, they counted age differently, how do we know that he's not a 90-year-old man dating an 18-year-old? It feels like there's a double standard. We're saying, oh, yeah, we know how old Muhammad was. That's obvious. But then when we have very clear statements of exactly how old Aisha was, we're trying to do all these gymnastics over the fact that she actually was 6 years old. Because we don't want to accept that.
I mean, hypothetically, let's say I agree you're right.
Mhm.
Okay, let's say you're right. Okay, which obviously
Okay.
I'll be wrong, but you agree. Okay, we can let's say you're right, right?
Sure.
So back then, the 18 plus rule did not apply to anything.
But puberty
So-
was a thing.
Yeah, so no one cared that no one cared that if you're over 18 to do certain stuff, right?
Yeah, whatever about the 18 thing. But I'm meaning puberty is a scientific fact, regardless of what we want to say about the cultural age acceptable marriage.
Nah, I get you, man.
When we see that she wasn't even at the age where she would have gone through puberty, we see that Muhammad is claiming that Allah told him to marry this girl who hasn't even gone through puberty. But
Okay.
Allah was the one who created science and knows that that's not good for someone to go
Yeah.
through.
So at the time, the Prophet Muhammad had young daughters around the age of 6 to 9 years old. Now, Allah suggested that the Prophet should have got a second wife in order that his second wife would take his young daughters. So when he had asked her who he had in mind, she suggested Sauda and Aisha. Now, it says, now does it make any sense to get a 6-year-old child, bride, to take care of children? One would have been very simple-minded to think that Allah would have asked Prophet Muhammad to marry a 6-year-old to take care of other 6 to 9-year-olds.
Doesn't
Yeah,
mean that he
so-
didn't.
Well, it's basic knowledge to assume now. So,
Well,
let
it's
me
not.
just sum up-
We shouldn't assume this. We should go based off of the things that we actually see clearly, and not
Yeah,
make
that's-
assumptions about ages.
Yeah, that's-
Because
that's
people
actually-
people do child labor, right?
Yeah, child labor was a big thing back then, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
So
think
if it was a big thing, that's even more convincing that that would have happened.
Not essentially, bro, because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he wouldn't. Why on earth would a young child get married to an old bride? Because it's wrong. So why would he do it himself?
Why would they? Yeah. Why would he
That's
do
what I'm
that?
asking, man. Yeah, so I think we're asking the same question, but in the wrong context, in the wrong kind of intention. 'Cause
Well, no,
saying,
I'm meaning why would he do that when we see the historical fact is the hadith says that she was 6 years old. Regardless of what we want to say about that, I think that that is probably true. When we look at like historical documents, there's like the criteria of embarrassment, right? Something is
Yeah.
way more likely to be true if it's an embarrassing detail. So
Okay, that's perfect.
yeah, when I see something like this, where it's an embarrassing thing, a 50-year-old somebody marrying a 6-year-old girl, that's embarrassing.
Right.
That makes it actually way more likely to be an actual true thing that Muhammad did.
Okay, I can prove you wrong with that right now. So, if it was taboo in the Prophet's time, so let's say that's completely okay. Let's go.
Well, then
say
it makes it
that's
even
fine.
more embarrassing.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. What are you saying? What are you saying? Let's say that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So, when he got married to Aisha to Billahi, why did his biggest enemies never say anything negative towards him about his marrying Aisha? If it was that bad, if he got married to a 6-year-old, obviously people are gonna impress him. They're gonna,
Well,
like,
he had an
really-
army, right?
No, not really, because his biggest enemy, Abu Bakr, didn't disagree because it wasn't that bad. Because why did Abu Bakr not disagree if it was so bad?
So at that time
Also,
where he wasn't getting any criticism from those people, did he already have a lot of people following Islam who were in warfare with him?
yeah, but did you have people
Okay. He
against Islam
did?
though? Yeah, yeah, enemies, no?
Okay. Yeah, but then the thing is, if they say something bad about him and he can send them
Right.
there and kill him, then of course he's not going to say something bad about him, right?
Okay, so first of all, I get what you mean, but that's not what Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We believe that he's the best man to ever walk the earth, right? That's the facts. It's been said multiple times. So for someone to be a good person, why would they kill someone and show up? And a second example of that is Jerusalem, the Battle of Jerusalem, right? He saw women and children, and he could have killed them because
Mm-hmm.
they had the Christians to surround them. But he said no, I can't because it's the women and children.
Yeah, but you
And
were talking
another
about
example,
Abu Bakr, right? You were saying that a specific person didn't say anything bad about him. What was his name?
nah, I wasn't wrong, bro. I'm saying Abu Bakr.
Okay.
Why did Abu Bakr never criticize him?
Okay. So that's a dude. So that's not a woman or a child, right?
Yeah, so that's
So
nice, yeah.
he doesn't kill women and children, say, but then the thing is, he isn't in that category. He easily could have done that.
He could have done it, but he didn't because he's not a
Yeah.
bad man. Like
He also
you could
didn't.
kill someone like that.
Maybe he
But
would have
you
if he
never.
did criticize.
Yeah, but like think about it. To be a good person, you have to take constructive criticism, no?
What
But
is
he
it?
didn't. Like, no one criticized him in the first place because he wasn't wrong, and he didn't marry a 6-year-old. So why would
Well,
someone
if he did
like
marry a 6-year-old, that is wrong. And if he's fearing for his
yeah?
life, if he calls him out, then he's not going to.
If he did marry a 6-year-old, but he didn't, so why would he be wrong if he didn't?
Well, you would again. You haven't shown how the age is counted differently because I've looked it up already, and they count years very similar to how they do today. So she
Yeah,
almost
okay.
definitely was 6 years old.
Yeah, so what I'm saying here, obviously, back then, getting married young wasn't only culturally normal, it was passed across lots of religions like Christianity, Judaism. So how can we use our modern image to judge what happened back in the past? Essentially.
Okay, so we're changing the argument now a little bit. So we're saying that it was culturally acceptable, right? We're not saying that he didn't marry a 6-year-old. He did, but
Yeah,
it was culturally okay.
yeah, she was puberty. I don't know what that means, but it's something to do with puberty.
Even if she was past the age of puberty, by the age of 9, somebody at that age is not okay to be able to make those types of choices in their life.
How would she be past the age of puberty if she was 9 though?
Well, what source even says that she was? What are they quoting?
Yeah,
Are they
but
just
like
saying it, or was it an actual source?
actual source. On Aisha, on narration, we learn that she said she was pubescent when the Prophet Muhammad sort of consummated the marriage of her. The parents were involved in that marriage because they were the ones who judged whether she was mature enough to make that decision.
Okay, so if your parents have to judge if they're mature enough to make this decision, if they're having to make the choice for you, doesn't that show that you don't have the capability to make that choice?
Well, it says here as well, if you're gonna marry someone, like never mind if it's like back then, today as well, if your marriage is gonna be like consummated or it's gonna go along, the person should be mentally ready,
Yeah.
physically ready. We have to take that into consideration.
Okay. Do you believe that Aisha was mentally ready at 9 years old?
Well, she wasn't 9 because she was mentally ready. Because she's not gonna be
Well,
at 9.
no, she was 9, and the question is a 9-year-old mentally ready for this? And I would say that
No,
that's not true.
the Prophet married Aisha 2 years after Hijri, which makes her 19, because 27 took her 10, add 2 is 19. Now Asma was born 595 AD, Aisha was born 605 AD.
But is that two hadiths or biographies disagreeing with each other?
Hadith can be wrong and are wrong, but not all the time, because Bukhari is not infallible and is subject to mistakes, especially when considering numbers as numbers get mixed up over time. Also consider the fact that hadith are all be transmitted or written. So again, this is like a case of broken telephone over time.
So then, if we don't know what in these is actually true, and we're only saying that one is true if there's disagreements, it seems like we're just picking and choosing what we want to be the most true. Because,
Can that make sense?
like, why would we know for sure that it's not the 19-year-old one that's wrong? Like, what if that one's the one that's wrong?
If you're a basic Muslim, is required to believe in the Quran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not Sahih al-Bukhari, not whatever other books I read. Because the reason why we believe in the Quran, because God literally said it, right?
Okay.
So moving on from that, Sahih al-Bukhari was always transmitted, but it was written. It was like, okay, it was written by like people, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, all
And the Quran was also written by people.
No, it was by God, bro.
No, it was
Like,
orally transmitted, claimed to be from God, and then it was written down by people.
Yeah, because like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, God told him what to write.
Well, the angel
So he can't be
Gabriel,
wrong.
it wasn't even God himself. If you like read the description of what's happening in his first encounter, it sounds like he's being possessed by a demon. That's what it looks like.
I've heard that.
You need to look at it, because he got pressed down 3 times until he couldn't bear it anymore. That's what was happening in this encounter.
I've heard it, but I've heard it being debunked, but I can't remember. You know that
Well,
guy,
just read it yourself.
No, I have, bro. Like ages ago. And you know Ali Dawah, right? The guy.
Do you think that an angel from God that's meant to send a message is going to oppress you 3 times until you can barely stand?
No, bro, he's not.
Okay.
And it's been debunked.
Wait,
man.
did you say that an angel won't do that?
No, you won't, because it's not an angel. An angel is
Okay.
someone who brings peace.
Yeah, of course. But that was the angel
Yeah.
Gabriel in that passage. So I don't believe that that was
Yeah.
the angel Gabriel, because that sounds like a demonic oppression. I do not trust whatever is going to come out of this thing's mouth.
I'd rather you ask someone else or watch your videos than ask me, because I'm young, bro. I don't know what I'm doing, but I can tell you that I've seen it. I've
Wait,
watched
sorry,
it
hold on. How old are you?
before.
16?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
And
not
you said that
young.
you're young, right?
Yeah, I'm young, man.
Okay.
Well, not too young, bro.
So how young is 6 years old?
It's young, innit? 10
Yeah.
years difference, bro.
That's what I'm talking about with this situation. I think that we look at this and we know that this is
Right.
wrong. Like me and you both.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it genuinely is true that he's just a pedophile, I think that we should reject him and not trust him as a prophet from God.
Well, that's what you can believe, but I believe. Like, 'cause actually, we both have different beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Christian or Muslim, we have different beliefs. I believe, and I've seen it being said and proved right, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not a pedophile, because
Okay.
first of all, he's the greatest man to ever walk the earth.
Did you say that Muhammad was the greatest man to walk on earth?
100%.
Okay. Was Jesus sinless?
I know in the Bible he is, right?
Yeah.
I don't actually know if he is in the Quran. I haven't read the full Quran yet, bro.
Yeah.
I should be Aisha.
Yeah. Well, I know that either in the Quran or the Hadith, Muhammad repented. So Muhammad wasn't sinless. And if Islam also teaches that Jesus is sinless, he's definitely greater than Muhammad.
Can you please watch a video on it? So everything you're asking me, I want you to.
Yeah.
Don't be biased in it, man. I want you to go and you should watch a video.
Oh yeah, I'm not
Because
I'm not trying to be biased. I'm trying to look at this objectively. And I think that objectively Muhammad is a pedophile. He was not hearing from God in the cave. It was very clearly a demonic oppression.
So, Habibi, whatever you want to believe.
Well, it's not just what I want to believe. I'm looking at the historical facts and saying this is what it looks like it's pointing to.
Yeah, but I think you're not looking at the right historical facts, because there's like, bro.
Or you're ignoring the historical facts that you should be looking at.
Inshallah, bro. I want you to take care, yeah.
I'll see you later, man. It was a good talk.
Okay.
Bye.